On a quiet Saturday in London, they came for an old woman, 83 years old. Her crime, a placard that read, "I oppose genocide, I support Palestine action." They led her away in handcuffs. She smiled, calm, dignified, unafraid. Her name, Reverend Sue Parfitt. She wasn't alone. Over 20 others were arrested that day. Many elderly, many women, all peaceful, all guilty of nothing except opposing a genocide. So what brought this on? A decision signed by Home Secretary Yvette Cooper to brand Palestine Action a group that's never hurt a soul, a terrorist organization. Their weapons, paint, chains, banners. Their mission, to stop British-made bombs from reaching Israeli hands, to disrupt genocide not committed. And the day Parliament voted to criminalize them, it was the anniversary of women in Britain winning the right to vote. The irony is obscene. Most women MPs posted tributes to the suffragettes, then turned around and voted to criminalize their spirit. But do they remember who the suffragettes were? The Women's Social and Political Union, led by Emmeline Pankhurst, planted bombs, burned down buildings, smashed windows, disrupted Parliament, chained themselves to railings, vandalized golf courses and churches, starved themselves in prison, and declared, "We are here not because we are lawbreakers, but in our efforts to become lawmakers." By comparison, Palestine Action is restraint incarnate. As Baron Peter Teh인 said, spraying paint on military aircraft is moderate by comparison to what the suffragettes did. But while MPs praise the suffragettes in Instagram captions, they criminalize anyone who carries their courage forward. When bombs fall on Gaza, Britain doesn't blink, but when a woman holds a placard, they send the vans. And here's the bigger truth. This isn't just about Palestine Action. It's about the erosion of liberal democracy in the very countries that claim to defend it. Liberalism once prided itself on one thing above all: the free, independent individual, able to speak their conscience without fear, protected from political persecution, empowered by the law, not silenced by it. But today, those same societies are silencing professors, punishing journalists, arresting students. Why? Because they dared to oppose a genocide. The narrative used to silence them: Israel has the right to defend itself, even when it is the one occupying, expanding, and exterminating. And when that no longer works, they reach for another weapon: anti-Semitism, not to fight hate, but to silence dissent. As John Mearsheimer called it, the Great Silence, a systematic effort to shut down criticism, to make Israel a sacred taboo. The German philosopher Jürgen Habermas defined democracy as a communicative society, not ruled by guns or decrees, but by open conversation. A society where nothing, not even the sacred, is off limits. But in today's West, you can mock religions, insult prophets, ridicule politicians, desecrate churches, but speak out against Israel and the conversation stops. You are labeled, demonized, punished. Look at the campaign against Bob Dylan for chanting death to the IDF. Look at the BBC twisting, distorting, burying stories, not to inform the public, but to manufacture consent for massacre. And still, the people speak, because something is breaking and something is rising. At Glastonbury, when Bob Dylan led that chant, tens of thousands roared it back, live on national TV. The crowd stood with Palestine. The politicians scrambled. Lisa Nandy called for sackings. Keir Starmer condemned it. Even the White House weighed in, but not one of them condemned what provoked the chant: the bombed hospitals, the burning children, the starving cities, the genocide. And just 2 days later, the UK High Court ruled it lawful to keep supplying parts for Israel's F-35 fighter jets. Chanting against genocide is a scandal. Committing it is lawful. But the tide is turning. In Britain, Israel's net favorability is -46. Nearly half the country believes it's committing genocide. A majority wants Netanyahu arrested. Across Europe, the picture is the same. And in the US, among young Democrats, support for the Palestinians has surged. Even young Republicans are beginning to turn. A Pew poll showed 53% of Americans now view Israel unfavorably. A Reuters Ipsos poll found 4 in 10 say Israel's problems are none of our business. And they're right, because this is not just a war on Gaza. It's a war on truth, on conscience, on democracy itself. The battle for Palestine is no longer only in Rafah or Khan Yunis. It is in London, in New York, in Berlin. It is in our hands. Because just as the suffragettes weren't handed freedom politely, just as apartheid didn't end by parliamentary patience, this will be won the same way, by people, by pressure, by persistence, by refusing to be silenced. History moves when the people make it move, and Palestine is now at the center of that storm. So remember the names: James D., the Welsh nurse who went to Rafah and came back heartbroken but undeterred, marching, protesting; Reverend Sue Parfitt, who smiled as they took her away; Baroness Jenny Jones, who stood when others stayed seated. When Palestine is free, and it will be, we'll remember those who stood for justice, and we'll remember who stood in its way.